Welcome. This is a brief history of daylight saving time with David Hawkins and Ross Hughes. We will explore the long history of why the United States follows daylight saving time. We will soon experience daylight saving time again on Sunday, March 13th, when we set our clocks forward 1 hour. For more information about the history of daylight saving time, there will be a list of resources at the end of the presentation. Otherwise, I suggest visiting one of Clermont County Public Library's 10 branches, where one of our courteous staff can help you discover more information about the topic. To begin, what is daylight saving time? Currently, daylight saving time is when people move the clocks forward or spring forward on the second Sunday in March at 2 a.m. Standard time is a time when we move the clocks back 1 hour or fall back on the first Sunday in November at 2 a.m. In theory, the idea was to move one of the hours in the morning when most people are sleeping to the evening when most people are awake to conserve energy.
With the arrival of trains arose the need for more accurate timekeeping. Before the trains connected the continent with the passage of the Railroad Act of 1862, which created the Transcontinental Railroad, everyone had local time, which varied from place to place and normally depended on solar noon. When trains started traveling across the country, especially from east to west, the importance of adopting a standard time became integral to keeping everything on track, so to speak. We needed the clocks and the people using the clocks on the same schedule for better efficiency. Otherwise, people in trains would show up early or late because everyone worked at different times. Safety also played a large role. If there wasn't a standard time, then trains would arrive at the same time and could cause a crash. The major railroad companies introduced time zones in 1883 to fix the problems with inconsistent timekeeping. America's railroads began using a standard time system involving 4 time zones: Eastern, Central, Mountain, and Pacific. Within each time zone, all clocks were synchronized. The railroad industry's plan was adopted by much of the country, although the time zone system didn't become official across the United States until the passage of the 1918 Standard Time Act, which also established daylight saving time.
This is the current picture of time zones in the United States. As you can see, the time zones don't cut vertically. This is due to politics and natural landmarks, such as rivers and mountains. To demonstrate one example of how politics and geography both play a role in determining where a time zone line cuts through a state, look no further than the state of Indiana. The northwest portion of Indiana is in a central time zone due to its proximity to Chicago, and the southwest portion is in a central time zone due to its proximity to Evansville.
Who first proposed the idea to move the clocks forward an hour? One myth surrounding daylight saving time is that Benjamin Franklin proposed the idea. He didn't actually suggest moving the clocks forward, but in a satirical letter to the French people in 1784, he suggested they get up earlier to enjoy the sunshine and save on candles. Movies such as National Treasure perpetuate the myth that Benjamin Franklin came up with the idea when he didn't. It's possible his tongue-in-cheek letter gave someone else the idea, but from what we've read, there is no evidence it did. We will discuss other myths surrounding daylight saving time at the end of the presentation.
One of the earliest advocates to move the clocks forward came from George Hudson, a New Zealand entomologist. In 1895, he proposed moving the clocks ahead 2 hours in summer to give him more time to study insects. He worked a regular job in the day and didn't have much time to study insects in the evening. He wanted more daylight in the evening to spend more time on his hobby.
The person who is given credit for daylight saving time when it finally got traction is William Willett. He wrote a pamphlet entitled Waste of Daylight, published in Britain in 1907 at his own expense, He circulated the pamphlet around until it reached Robert Pierce, a member of Parliament. In the pamphlet, he proposed moving the clocks forward 20 minutes every Sunday in April and back 20 minutes every Sunday in September. Just like Benjamin Franklin, he came up with the idea after noticing houses shuttered in the morning. He wanted people to enjoy the sunlight. Funny enough, his suggestion to move the clocks ahead 20 minutes every week would help people adjust to the time change in a healthier way. This is a topic we will discuss later in the presentation.
Robert Pierce, pictured here, proposed a bill to adopt Willett's idea in 1908. Members of Parliament discussed the matter and even decided on moving time forward or back 1 hour, but ultimately rejected the idea. Local ties to daylight saving time. In 1909, E.H. Murdoch returned to Cincinnati from England. He discovered the idea for daylight saving time while he traveled to England and proposed the idea to Congress upon his return. Eventually, as a fellow citizen in Cincinnati, Murdoch won President Taft's interest and organized the National Daylight Association. William Howard Taft rejected the idea on a national level, but told Mr. Murdoch to go back to Cincinnati and try it there first. In June 1909, an ordinance was passed for Cincinnati to become the first city in the United States to try daylight saving time. But in May 1910, the ordinance was repealed due to a conflict in the statutes. They forgot to repeal an ordinance from February 1890 that adopted Central Standard Time as a criterion of time in the city of Cincinnati.
Port Arthur, Ontario, in Canada, is the first place to start observing daylight saving time. Other cities and provinces in Canada followed suit, but the first country to observe daylight saving time was Germany during World War I. In 1916, the German Empire adopted Willett's idea of daylight saving time. They adopted the idea to save coal for the war effort. After Germany adopted it, Britain adopted the same measure a few months later. On April 6, 1917, the United States declared war on Germany, and on March 19, 1918, the United States adopted daylight saving time, or what was called wartime, with the Standard Time Act. According to David Perow's Seize the Daylight, the Standard Time Act established 7 months of national daylight saving time each year, April through October. It also legally sanctioned the railroad's 4 time zones. The time to transition from standard time to daylight saving time was chosen to minimize potential problems for the railroads. The fewest number of trains ran at 2 a.m., thus 2 a.m. was designated as the transition time. After the war, the United States abandoned wartime once again due to its unpopularity.
Pictured here are some advertisements promoting daylight saving time in the United States during World War I. From the end of World War I in 1919 to the beginning of World War II in 1941, the United States kept a standard time. During World War II, President Franklin Roosevelt reinstituted daylight saving time, or as it was known, wartime, from February 9, 1942 to September 30, 1945. They used daylight saving time during the war effort to conserve energy once again.
After daylight saving time ended in 1946, there wasn't a uniform standard time for setting clocks, so a particular city, state, or county could choose to follow daylight saving time or not, and this caused a great deal of confusion. One of the worst examples of towns going by their own time was exemplified in the bus route from Steubenville, Ohio to Moundsville, West Virginia. It only took a little over an hour to drive from one place to the other, but during this drive, the time changed 7 times.
The map shows that the route goes from north to south. It doesn't go east to west to move into any other time zones. This again is one of the examples why the United States needed uniform time across the country.
The Uniform Time Act of 1966 standardized time for the entire country. Daylight saving time would start on the last Sunday in April and end on the last Sunday in October. The act stated that the country would follow daylight saving time unless a state chose to opt out of it. Arizona, Hawaii, and Michigan opted out. Michigan repealed the law in 1972 and started observing daylight saving time in 1973. Arizona and Hawaii still observe standard time year-round, except for the Navajo Nation in Arizona, which observes daylight saving time. The Hopi Reservation, which is surrounded by the Navajo Nation in Arizona, does not observe it. Clearly, the Uniform Time Act did not fix all of the problems associated with daylight saving time.
In 1973, OPEC imposed an oil embargo on the United States. This caused the price of oil to quadruple. In response, on January 4, 1974, President Nixon signed into law the Emergency Daylight Saving Time Energy Conservation Act of 1973. Clocks set ahead 1 hour year-round 2 days later. However, due to its unpopularity, Congress amended the act and standard time returned on October 27, 1974. Traditional daylight saving time resumed on February 23, 1975 and ended on October 26, 1975. Regular daylight saving time resumed in April 1976.
It wasn't until the mid-1980s that things would change again. In 1986, Congress amended the Uniform Time Act by starting daylight saving time on the first Sunday in April. Standard time still started on the last Sunday in October. This amended version of daylight saving time ran from 1987 to 2006.
In 2005, Congress passed the Energy Policy Act. The act changed daylight saving time to the second Sunday in March and the first Sunday in November starting in 2007. This solved the concern parents had with children trick-or-treating on Halloween night when it was dark outside. We still observe this version of daylight saving time. However, there is a move to make daylight saving time permanent year-round. Currently, 19 states have signed laws to make daylight saving time year-round, and another 22 states are considering it, but it will take a change in federal law for the change to happen.
There are pros and cons to daylight saving time. One pro is that there would be more daylight in the spring, summer, and early fall to enjoy outdoor activities. More daylight in the evening decreases crime. It's also claimed that it's good for the economy. The extra daylight increases shopping habits and sales on outdoor activities such as golf. However, there are also cons, especially with health. The hour change disrupts people's circadian rhythm, which causes a decrease in sleep, which increases depression, heart attacks, stroke, and injuries the week following daylight saving time. Also, for a brief period of time, it is darker in the morning when children go to school.
Geography causes another problem when discussing daylight saving time. We live across a wide continent divided into 4 time zones in the continental United States and 11 time zones when including all the other territories. The sunrise and sunset vary depending on a person's location in a time zone and how near a person is to the equator or near the North Pole. The closer a person is to the North Pole, the more daylight there is in the summer, and the closer a person is to the equator, the more equal the amount of day and night there is year-round. To give a few examples in the continental United States, I'll first look at from west to east, so look at Bangor, Maine versus Indianapolis, Indiana. Bangor, Maine is in the Eastern time zone and is about as far east as anyone can get in the continental United States. On June 21st, the sunrise for Bangor, Maine is 4:49 a.m. and the sunset is 8:24 p.m. after observing daylight saving time. Indianapolis, Indiana is also in the Eastern Time Zone, but is on the edge of the Central Time Zone. The sunrise there is 6:16 a.m. and the sunset is 9:16 p.m. on June 21st. Since Bangor remains farther east than Indianapolis, the sun sets an hour early in the evening, even though it is in the same time zone. Bowling Green, Kentucky is directly south in Indianapolis, but it is in the Central Time Zone. The sunrise there is 5:26 a.m. and the sunset is 8:08 p.m. on June 21st. Bowling Green loses an hour of daylight in the evening during daylight saving due to being in the Central Time Zone. Now to look at north versus south. The more northern the city, the later the sun sets in the evening in the summer usually, unless the city is on the far eastern part of the time zone, such as Bangor, Maine. For example, in Fargo, North Dakota, the sun rises at 5:32 a.m. on June 21st and sets at 9:32 p.m. Austin, Texas, the sun rises at 6:29 a.m. and sets at 8:35 p.m. There's an hour difference in the morning and evening despite being located roughly in a vertical straight line from each other. But since they are separated by 1,200 miles, the sun sets later in Fargo since it is 1,200 miles closer to the North Pole. Or another way of looking at it is say Austin is 1,200 miles closer to the equator.
There are several common myths about daylight saving time. One of the most common is that farmers were the ones who advocated for it. In truth, they've always been against it. The changing hours disrupt the farmer's schedule. Michael Downing believes the myth that farmers advocated for daylight saving time started around World War I, when the farmers protested its passage and when a store owner suggested the positive outcomes for farmers. Farmers and daylight saving time have become linked in the minds of people, even though this is incorrect. Another myth: daylight saving time saves energy. It appears to save some, but not as much as it was initially proposed. The savings are negligible at this point. One study puts the savings at 0.03%, another at 0.5%. Daylight saving time may have saved more energy 100 years ago, but with all the energy efficient lights and devices that we have today, the savings are minor at best. Another myth: health improvements from the extra daylight. In the beginning, advocates of daylight saving time said that the extra daylight would benefit the health of the population by getting people outside more often. Although the extra hour in the evening may increase outdoor activities, in reality, the extra loss of sleep causes a 5% increase in heart attacks, along with an increase in strokes, depression, and accidents the week following the time change.
With daylight saving time starting soon, we have some tips to deal with the hour change. According to the Cleveland Clinic, prepare for the annual change in the spring by going to bed 15 to 30 minutes earlier every night the week before. This will prepare your body for the hour change. Another tip is to stick to your schedule. Allow your body to adjust to the change. Exposing yourself to the sun in the morning will help with the adjustment. A third tip is don't take a nap. Taking naps makes it difficult for your body to adjust to the time change. However, if a nap is unavoidable, take one early in the day and no longer than 20 minutes. And the fourth tip is avoid coffee and alcohol, especially 4 to 6 hours before bedtime. I hope you enjoyed this presentation on the brief history of daylight saving time. Here's a list of the resources used to research the topic. Feel free to contact your local library to access the resources listed under Bibliography and Library Resources. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.